Hey, it's Ken Lewis. Welcome back to audioschoolonline.com. So this lesson is going to be mixing hip-hop instrumentals with a focus on mixing a sample-based beat. So in this particular beat, the sample doesn't really command the overall attention of the track. It's kind of like the biggest piece of the puzzle, but there's a lot of MIDI instrumentation. If you can see up on the screen, all of the blue tracks are like melodic MIDI instrumentation. You have I'll just briefly show you real quick. Choir, tremolo strings, so you can hear all of these different elements that have been added on top of the sample, and then all of the drums are programmed drums. So the meat of the drums is not coming from the sample. My goal with this is going to be to make the whole thing feel kind of like a retro 70s soul sample. All of the melodic music that's been added, I want to make that sound a little bit more retro throwback so that this sounds like one coherent beat. And also, of course, I'm going to try and make the drums hit hard and all of that stuff. So the first thing that I've done is I just spent some time rough mixing it. So I've got a rough mix, and basically the reason that I always do a quick rough mix before I mix, or if my clients will give me a rough mix to listen to, I'll sit and I'll listen to the rough mix for 5 or 6 times through before I'll start mixing the song, just so I can get a musical picture, not a sonic picture, more so a musical picture of, you know, okay, what's in front of me today? What is this? Okay, it's a sample beat. I've got heavy 808s. I've got kind of lower mid-rangey kicks. I've got a clap, no snare, slow hi-hats, 3 different samples to blend, and then I've got some stuff that's more pad-like, like the tremolo strings, and the choir is more pad-like, and then I've got more kind of in and out featured instrumentation, that big piano sweep, the guitar hits, the violas that come in, the horn swells that come in, all of those stuff. So, you know, I listen down to the rough mix a few times. I get a sense of what it is that I'm mixing and where I want to take it, and now I'm going to take it there. So first I'm going to show you some of the instrumentation that we're dealing with. Let me just solo all of the samples right now so you can just hear the samples. Okay, so that's going to be the bulk of what I try and get everything else to fit in context with. So if you hear, like say for the trem strings are these really clean, nice, pretty string samples, I'm going to find a way to dirty that up. A lot of this mix is going to be just finding ways to dirty things up, give them a little bit more personality, give them a little bit more kind of a, you know, place in time. I'm going to try and make these things sound like kind of an old gritty 70s record that's, you know, the vinyl's been played like 5,000 times, so it's a little bit worn out, and, you know, you have those old record feels that producers love to sample. And by the way, this producer is a guy named Ecstasy. I'm going to put his info up on the screen so you have it. I'm using a few of his beats. He's a really talented producer, so you should get at him if you want some beats. Let me start digging into this mix. Faders down to finished. Here we go. Now, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my monitoring volume way up. You may not actually be able to hear it at home, but on, you know, on my monitor, on my playback, my volume is now cranked. So sometimes when you'll hear me engage my mic before the music is done fading out, it's going to sound really loud. Sorry about that, but that's the way it is. So so I'm going to turn my listening volume up, and then I'm going to start just getting new balances on things. and bring this thing together. I'm just going to do another quick rough mix, then I'm going to start dirtying things up. Now, one thing I'm noticing with this sample, this is the sample that drives most of the song. Here's this guitar sample that I've been playing just now. So it's in most of the song. I'd say this is like a verse section, but it's like the main chorus driver. The first thing that I'm noticing about it is it's pulling my attention kind of to the left, because I think the main hit within the sample kind of comes out on the left side. So you get this hit that's constantly pulling your attention left. So the first thing I'm going to do before anything else is I'm going to try and refocus that so that your attention on this guitar sample is in the middle. I'm probably just going to do that with panning. Okay, that sounds a bit more centered. So basically I just took up the left pan pot up a little bit higher than the right one, which just takes the whole stereo image and starts to shift it. So I just shifted it until it feels right in the center to me. Now when my drums are hitting and the sample is going, the focus is going to be like here. Your brain isn't going to be pulled into different directions, and your ears aren't going to be. This harp is a really, really bright sound, and it's kind of got a really super percussive attack to it. So I'm not sure how I'm going to use it yet, but I'll either probably darken it up or I'll just use it as a really light color just on top of the mix. But it's going to be hard to get that one to feel like the old sample. Okay, these strings are way too clean. Sounds like I'm in a concert hall instead of on a 70s record. So I'm going to maybe reach for, there's this air plugin called Vintage Filter. This thing is cool. Okay, that's filtering way too much. So I'm just going to tweak this. I think you can see it on screen. Okay, that's sufficiently dirty. Here's the AB. But it did do one thing, which was give me this really, really piercing tone right in the middle of the mid-range, which is going to be right in the vocal frequencies. So I'm going to put an EQ on that and filter a little bit of that out. I don't want all of it gone because it helps make it sound kind of dirty and aggressive, but I need to open up a little bit more room for the vocalist. That would be it. So you hear that ringing frequency that I took out of it? So I'm taking a very, very tight little notch of frequency out, and it actually sounds like I'm adding a tone when I bypass this and bring the frequency back. So next thing I'm going to do, I want to get this kind of off center, so I'm going to spread it out a little bit. I'm going to use maybe the Digirac delay. This short delay 2 I use. Short delay 2 I use a lot. I have this. I bet this is going to be the one. It's one of my saved presets. It's called, I call it Ken Mono 2 Stereo 2. And that's what it does. So you might want to pause your screen and kind of look at my settings. Any stereo delay that has these types of settings can recreate exactly what I'm doing here. It's not rocket science. So take a gander, and basically you can hear how it goes from the center to the sides, but it doesn't sound like it's phasing or flanging. It doesn't sound like it's any kind of a fake effect. It sounds just like it once was mono and now it's stereo. Okay, so let me put that in the mix and move on. I'm adding a little top end back. My filter is now up to about almost 7 kilohertz. And I think I'm going to take a little more of that mid out, just make it a bit wider. There we go. I'm probably not going to do a ton to the sample other than rebalance it and drive it. You know, it doesn't have big drums that I got to try and pull out of it. It's not super bassy. It's not. I mean, it's kind of mid-rangey, but I think this beat kind of needs that. So far, I'm not tweaking the sample much. Wow, this sounds super bright, super attacky. Super like clean, and it's got that repeating delay too. I want to dirty this up a little bit. So I think maybe the first thing I'll reach for is Isotope Vinyl. This is a free plugin, and it's really, really cool at what it does. It's just a filter, but it kind of does it in a vinylish sort of way. Here at its steepest is supposed to recreate a 1930s style record. I kind of like the curve that the 1960 setting gives me. Here's the AB. So it's just taking a little bit of the bite off of the kind of the top end of that, but I still want this a lot dirtier. Like that's a good start, but I need it more than that. So I'm going to reach for the Soundtoys Decapitator. This I'm not going to distort it. I'm just going to add a little bit of fuzz into it, just a little bit of kind of grit. So it sounds distorted just a touch in solo, but I don't think you're ever going to hear that in the beat. And the distortion of the beat is just going to kind of help it make it feel like a part of the whole. Let's see what else we got here. All right, why don't I work on the horns? Again, a very clean horn swell, very mono sounding with this kind of really pretty stereo delay. I wouldn't have put the delay on it, that's how it was delivered to me. I'm going to try and do kind of similar things to what I did with the tremolo with this. Kind of dirty it up a little bit, give it a bit of an edge, and then maybe see how it sounds spread out a little bit. Mainly because the main chorus, or the main sample that runs through most of the track is, I'm not monoizing it. It does have some stereo element to it, but the bulk of the push of the beat is right in the middle, so I kind of want to surround it musically a little bit. And let's see what I can do with these horns. I like using this to kind of just not really dirty it up, just to give it a bit more of an analog feel. And when I'm going for something like that, I'll usually slow the tape way down, 7.5 or 3.75, and put it on a 1/4 inch and see what it sounds like. Cool, so that's given it some kind of personality. Now I'm just going to take the exact same short delay that I used on the tremolo and see if it works for this. That's a little bit wide for my tastes. I want to see if I can reduce that width a little bit. Okay, that's pretty good. So basically what I did was, if you see this setting compared to the short delay, so this is the trem and this is the horns. And you can see really, what did I do here? Oh, so I took, there on the tremolo, the delay on the right side is set to 15 milliseconds. So basically what you have is 0 mix on the left. So you have no delay whatsoever going on the left side of your stereo image. On the right side of your stereo image is 100% delayed. And that on the strings is being delayed by about 15 milliseconds. No chorusing or modulation. On the horns, that 15 milliseconds felt too wide, so I just started pulling it in with the delay time until it got about to the width that I wanted. It was just kind of too out of phase at 15 milliseconds, the horns were. So I pulled them into about 9 milliseconds, and I think they're much better here. Cool, moving on. Let's see how that sounds in the mix. Just a little clean. I'm gonna hit him with let me hit him with the decapitator. And actually, you know, Massey makes this tape head thing that's pretty cool. Let me try that first. It's kind of giving these nasty artifacts that normally I would say don't sound good, but in the text of this kind of really dirty hip-hop mix, I actually like what it's doing. Choir's really clean, but it's not really doing much. It's just kind of a filler sound to me. So I don't think actually the one thing that I think I'm going to do is, it feels like it's pulling to the right and I want to center it a little bit. So It's kind of an odd way to do it, but it's one of the only ways I really know how. Here we go. Waves Renaissance EQ. The good thing about this is you can unlink the left and right sides of the EQ. So I tend to sometimes use this as like a left-right balance. You see in bypass, it immediately pulls to the right. All I'm doing is I'm actually taking the right side of the stereo blend down by 2.2 dB, and just because it was a little bit loud, so all of a sudden it just kind of levels it out right there, and it makes it nice and evenly balanced across the stereo field instead of pulling to the right. I'll let you hear it one more time. Let's look at the viola. It's got kind of a slow attack. Sometimes the Cush Audio UBK1 is good at giving things attack. I tend to like the splat setting for this, but you got to be real gentle with this thing. This thing's a beast. Do you hear how this thing is like it feels without the UBK, it feels like the sample kind of slopes up to its kind of peak of attack. Here's in bypassing. And then what the UBK is doing is it's kind of almost giving it more of like a pulse attack. Dun, 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 instead of wah, 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 wah. Let's see if you... Let me see if I can get these harps in the mix. Kind of reminds me of like something maybe Supertramp or ELO would have used back in that day. So I'm going to put an effect on this. Maybe I'll start with a real bright reverb. Maybe the UAD 140. So what I'm going to do with the 140, I'm going to scroll through just the presets until I find one that's kind of really bright and thin, and then I might tweak it from there. This one's kind of nice. It's really subtle, which is what I'm looking for. I don't necessarily want this to sound like it has reverb. I just kind of want to tuck it into the soundscape with everything else. Now this guitar stab I need to put in. Sounds pretty good already. I'm going to maybe feed it through an amplifier and see what I get out of that. First thing I notice, if I want to feed it into like a reamp, like a IK Amplitude 3 or Guitar Rig 5 or Amp Farm or something like that. They tend not to like having signal fed to them that high. There's almost no headroom. A real guitar, if you recorded a real guitar without an amplifier, your meters would be somewhere down here. So the first thing I'm going to do is put a trim plug-in on it and turn the trim way down, maybe like 15 dB down. Cool. That'll drive the amp a whole lot more naturally. And amp-wise, I think I'm going to try the Amplitude 3. And I'm going mono to stereo on this. The reason being, I want to find an amplifier with spring reverb. So you see this thing right here, spring reverb. I want to find an amp with spring reverb that splashes in stereo so that the hit is in the center and you just hear the decay in stereo. I wouldn't always go for that, but this mix, that's what I think I'm going to do. That's pretty good already. I might stick to this one. I'm just going to scroll a few other amps and see if I like anything better. That's the one. This looks like a Mesa Boogie Mark III emulation. The patch is called Clean Edgy 1. And it's got that spring reverb that I'm looking for out of the amplifier. Usually you can only find spring reverbs in guitar amps or emulations thereof. So this just gives my hit a little bit of grit and kind of makes it just feel more like it's coming out of a real amp. Now it's a little too thin. Here's one more thing about this. It's hitting exactly perfectly in time with the claps in the pulses, and I'm almost losing a sense of what it is. So I'm actually going to take this entire guitar track and I'm going to slide it backwards in time so it hits about 15 milliseconds later, just so it just gets off of that clap, and hopefully you'll be amazed at how much more clearly you can hear it in the mix. So no modulation with this, no feedback, 100% wet. I'm just taking it and I'm moving it back in time. You could use the nudge button for the same thing. I don't know if that does anything for you. For me, it makes a huge difference. It's when it's bypassed and it's hitting right with the clap, I'm really losing the impact of the guitar stab. But when I move it back, I'm moving it back 19 milliseconds. It's like a blink of an eye, and it just lays it back off of that clap just enough to kind of give it its own sonic space. I actually really like this clap. It sounds kind of old and dirty. I'm not really going to mess with it too much. Let me see what's going on with the rest of the drums. It's pretty clean, but I think it works in the beat. This is a pretty good sounding live bass, but I'm going to dirty it up a little bit. I think probably with another IK amp. This Ampeg SVX sounds really great for basses. So this gives it a much more kind of real bass amp effect. And the amp that I'm using is an old Ampeg B15 model, which was basically the standard. That's what all the studio guys used. Kick sounds pretty good. You know, this is why you rough mix things, and this is why you go through and you listen to what you have before you begin to mix. Because if I pulled this kick drum up and I didn't have any context for what my mix was going to be and where it was going to go and what the other sounds were in my mix, I might add a ton of like really sub-bottom to this, which it doesn't really have. You know, it's got some sub, but it's not like, I mean, I've got dual subwoofers in here. I know when I've got some really good solid sub, and this is kind of a lower mid-rangey kind of a kick. It's got a nice punch to it, not a super amount of sub, but sitting right next to it is this 808. And the 808 is all sub. So I'm going to let the 808s carry those sub frequencies in my mix. I'm going to let the kick drum sit just above that, and I'm going to let the note of the bass sit just above that kick. So I'm kind of stacking. There's an 808, kick drum, bass guitar. Now I might also add some sub into the bass guitar. I think it's a little thin now, but I don't see that yet as a problem moving forward with, you know, bass frequencies between the bass and the 808 clashing or the kick. You know, we'll find out when I get there. The other thing, I have no headroom to work with on this. Sometimes that's all right, but in this case, I'm going to try some compression stuff, so I'm going to start by giving myself some headroom and just trim the whole sound down a little bit. It's basically the same volume that it was. I just had to turn down the source and turn up the fader. So I think I'm gonna use the come on, Ken, where is it? Neve 33609. It's a good solid compressor. Hear how it's just letting that touch of transient through, so it's giving me just a little bit of knock. And as soon as it starts grabbing it with the compressor, it's bringing up the tails of the sound, so the sound actually lasts longer and has a little bit more impact, which is what I'm looking for. Hear how it dies more quickly on bypass? So that helps just poke that sound out just a little bit more into my mix, so you can really definitively hear what the kick drum is doing. Okay, so I'm working the rest of the samples into it now. This, oh baby, and what am I gonna do? Samples. Oh, baby. So, and I'm not only listening to the samples right now, I'm listening to how well the rest of the music around them interacts with it and kind of sounds like the same piece of music. The harp kind of bothers me a little bit, so I don't mind it tucked way back into the mix. I think it adds a nice color to it, but when it's too loud, it just distracts me, and I start focusing my ears on the harp instead of the sample and the music, which is where I want my focus to be. I have these O's I haven't added in yet. Let me add these. Aha, that's another sample. Let me move that to the sample area and color code it correctly. Staying organized when you mix is so important. I just want to add a little compression to this just to smooth it out a bit. Now I want to listen to all the samples together just to make sure that they're working together appropriately. Sometimes I tend to make samples that have like key vocals in them a little bit louder in the mix because sometimes, like if you'll remember when Just Blaze did that song Boy for Cameron, there was that repeating, high-pitched boy, boy, and Cameron used that to play off of, and so this, so this might be a case of in the chorus that the rapper hears what am I gonna do, and might stop his rap or tailor his rap to that moment. So you got to make sure that that's really clear in the mix and really audible. You don't want to get kind of karaoke level with it, but you want to make sure that the stuff that might lyrically drive the song is really featured. Oh, baby. The only other thing is what am I going to do is just a touch brighter than the Babe and the O sample. So I'm going to maybe just add a touch of top end with those. Maybe let's try 2 dB at 8K and see. So I'm trying to 2 dB bump at 8K on both of those. Cool, I think we're a lot closer. I would spend more time trying to really closely match those up. But I don't want to spend a half an hour tweaking that one thing. You'll get bored to death and want to go. Oh, baby, what am I gonna do? So I'm just gonna maybe fatten up that bass a little bit so it carries more weight in the verses. Where is it? Here we go. So I'm going to try Waves Max Bass. No, let me try UAD Voice of God. This thing is one of my new favorites. You definitely would need a sub to be able to hear exactly what this is doing, but it's basically giving me almost another octave of weight down there. Oh, baby, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? And I'm going to try a touch of reverb on the bass too, only because it's a sampled beat. I don't know if it's going to work. Yeah, it's pretty subtle, but I think it's going to make it sound like a piece of the whole instead of kind of its own thing. Alright, so now I'm going to kind of put the finishing touches on it. Sometimes I would widen my mix. Usually when I do kind of more older soul type stuff, I tend to stay away from the widening stuff. They didn't have it back then. I think you're probably going to do yourself a bit of a disservice trying to emulate that now. What am I going to do? I'm going to put the Ampex ATR 102, which is from that era. The other thing that this thing does is adds noise. You can take it away. Not sure if you can hear that. But actually, I don't mind it a little bit of added noise. I think this beat is far too clean overall. I might add just even a couple dummy plugins that just generate noise just to kind of give it a bit more grit. Oh, baby, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? Cool, so I actually the setting that comes up when you first fire this thing up is one of my favorite settings. Ampex 456 running at half-inch wide tape at 15 IPS. Sounds great. And usually I'll scroll through presets, but they're all pretty subtle. This one sounds pretty good. If you wanted a little bit brighter, you'd go to 1-inch tape. So, but this one, I don't want my beat to be overly bright. I want it to be a little darker, a little grittier, like really clear still, but just not really pristine like like that original piano was. I'm trying to get away from that sound. And the last thing that I'll finish it, I know a lot of you guys have like the Waves L2. Honestly, I would never finish a mix like this myself. I have much better tools. But since a lot of you guys, this is kind of what you're using or something very similar, I'm going to show you how I would use it. And, haha, you can't hear this. Let's try that again. So I just put those on the master bus. You weren't hearing any of that Ampex stuff. I'm really sorry. So here's the Ampex one more time. I'm going to bypass the L2. Just making the whole thing sound kind of a little bit more solid, a little more glued together, a little noisier. Again, I have the noise on. If you turn it off, you hear it as actually just adding a touch of white noise, just like tape hiss. And then I'm going to go back to the L2 and finish it off. This is pretty darn loud. A lot of guys, one of the biggest problems I hear when I get beats into mix, any song into mix actually, if I listen to the rough mix, a lot of times the rough mix is compressed to oblivion. It is so loud. Just watch your speakers and just listen to how much perceptually louder I can get this just by pulling the slider down too much, and I think this is one of the biggest mistakes people make. But do you hear how things are now? Kind of a little bit distorted and a little bit just not as clear and don't work together as well so much. Louder is not always better. I'm a proponent of loud. Loud is no problem at all, but super crazy loud, you start losing the impact of your bottom end. Your kicks don't hit as hard. Everything thins out. Everything gets a little smearier. So just be a little careful. Get it loud, but not overly loud for loud's sake. And I think what I'm doing here with this is about, I might try just a real fast attack and release and see if that helps. I think I like the auto attack release on it, so I'll just leave that where it is. That's about it. I'm done. I'm finished. So I'll play you a few seconds of it. You can vibe to it. Hear the finished product.
Oh, baby, what am I gonna do?
Ken Lewis, AudioSchoolOnline.com. Thanks for watching.